Welcome back to the Analytics, a channel that is solely focused on analyzing the socio-political and economic happenings in Nigeria, Africa, and world at large. But before we continue, make sure to hit that subscription button. Press the notification bell so that you can easily get notified whenever we come online. Well, as the war drags on, the Russian invasion of Ukraine with its biting economic implications, another seems to be emerging in the Western Asia. Israel and Iran are about to go to war, and the signs are ominous. Iran is threatening to walk out of the nuclear deal, while Israel has engaged in military practice of strike Iranian assets, and none of these bodes well for the region and for the world at large. Israel and Iran has had a long history of conflicts and hostilities, but none of these has ever led to war. Never ever led to war. It has always been proxy wars. It has always been shadow attacks. It has always been economic sabotage. For some time now, Israel is accusing Iran of targeting its citizens abroad, and the first is Turkey. Israeli citizens have been advised to avoid the country. And of course, Turkey, being a highly security-conscious nation with its high security tech, must have engaged in counter-terrorism activities. And this is because assassination of foreign nationals means a certain end to tourism. And also, Turkey has engaged in high diplomatic damage control, the first being the visit of Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid to Turkey on Thursday. This is after a phone call between the two leaders, Israeli President Isaac Herzog and Turkish President Recep Erdogan. Well, there are two expected takeaways from this visit. Israel is hoping on security assurances, while Turkey is expected to extend such assurances. According to Israeli officials, Turkey is not the only country on the radar. UAE, Jordan, and Egypt are also within the countries that Iran is expected to target Israeli citizens. The Israeli intelligence is on high alert. On Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett warned that Iran would pay dearly if any of such attack happens, and that Israeli foreign intelligence is on high alert and working with foreign governments to thwart such attacks before it ever occurs. Well, why these attacks on Israeli citizens by Iran? There are three reasons. One is that it is expected to put pressure on the US and Israel so that the Iran nuclear deal would be signed. Remember, on March 2022, the deal was nearly signed, but since then, there has been a deadlock. Recall that US and Israel are key to signing the Iran nuclear deal. And targeting Israeli citizens abroad would put pressure on US President Joe Biden to sign the deal. The second reason is a double strike, as a warning to both Israel and the Gulf nations. Turkey, Bahrain, the UAE, Jordan, and Egypt, all of them have normalized relations with Israel, and all of them are within the nations that Israel says its citizens are being targeted by Iran. The message: do not gang up against Iran, but Israel has an answer: a special defense alliance. Israel officials confirmed its existence for the first time on Monday. US-Israel Defense System for West Asia is the code name for this special defense alliance. And according to Israeli officials, this defense alliance has long been activated, and it has led to several successful thwarts of these terror attacks on Israeli citizens abroad. Well, the third reason: Israel might as well be bluffing. Israel might be looking for reasons to attack Iran. Remember, as we said earlier, These two nations have had a long history of proxy wars. This might be one of them. A reason to attack in order to stop Iran from proceeding with its nuclear activities. Remember, the Iranian nuclear activity has been on high gear since the former US President Donald Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal. And ever since the reactivation of this nuclear deal, talks has been held for the deals to be reactivated. And Iran has had two requests from the US. One, remove the Iran Revolutionary Guard from foreign terrorist lists. And number two, assurances that US will never pull out of this deal again. That the US will never pull out of this deal again. These two concessions, the US President Joe Biden is not ready to grant. Remember also that Iran has activated its nuclear activities and it's on the high gear. The Iran uranium is charged up to 60%. And when it gets to 90%, it is as good as being weaponized. And at this point, Israel will strike. Now, can the US President Joe Biden prevent such activities? Let us be certain here. US President is the only person who can prevent such activities. Remember also that the US supplies Israel with security, both logistics and weapons, that are worth over $1.7 billion. The US President can leverage on this to warn the Israeli nation not to attack Iran. The US can also decide to make these two concessions as demanded by Iran, and this nuclear deal would be signed. Remember, Iran wants the nuclear deal signed, while Israel doesn't want such, as it believes that Iran will still go ahead underneath and be charging its uranium. And a nuclear weaponized nation at the border is a threat to Israeli national security, according to Israeli security officials. Well, as these activities unfold, we will keep analyzing them. We will keep bringing to you updates. But remember to subscribe. The growth of this channel relies heavily on your subscribing to the channel and you're hitting the notification bell so that you can easily get us whenever we come online. It is the analytics.